Hello, my name's Nick. I'm here with Notch and Tags, and today we're going to go over how I set up a bow. The bow we're going to set up today is Prime's 2023 flagship Revex 34. So now it's January 13th, 2024, and well, it's -3 out here in north central Washington, and why not just build a bow? So we're going to install the Hamskea epsilon. This is their newer rest, I believe, from 2022, 2021. Don't quote me on these dates at all. This is my second one I've owned. I put this on my PSE XF 34, still shooting, no issues at all. I have the burger mount. They come with, nowadays, so many bows are inline, but this Prime doesn't have an inline option yet. I believe maybe on their new 2024, 2023, 2024 bow, it is inline, but this bow doesn't give me that option, which is fine. I haven't shot an inline, so I don't really know what the pluses and negatives are. Maybe torque tuning if you're into that, but yeah, we'll go from there. The first place I start is I put on the rest. And because I put on the rest first, that's where you can put your arrow on there. Make sure your arrow is manufacturer spec for off the riser and on top of the shelf of the riser. And I'll get into showing you what those measurements are and what Prime is looking for. It's called center shot on their bows. On the Hamskea rest, I'm going to install the universal L bracket onto my Hamskea. One thing I wanted to go over that I forgot is on this Hamskea, there's these two little pegs sticking out, and then on the universal L bracket, you got these, I don't know if you can see those, but there's little holes on the bottom and top of them, and that's so you can help with your center shot. If your riser's thick, thin, you can move the L bracket in, you can move it all the way out. On this Prime, it looks like an average one, so I'm going to start in the center, but I might end up taking this off and having to shift this instead of using all my windage adjustment on the rest. So I'm going to install this, then I'm going to install this on the bow. Just go. Just gonna get a little tug, not too tight that you're gonna snap or strip out this bolt, but we don't want it to come loose either, so. Man, this self-videoing stuff, not easy. So the guys that have been doing this for years or do it at all, props to you, because this might be my first time. I kind of helped out on the Montana hunt a little bit, but very hard. Not easy trying to get these camera angles. I don't even know if they're good angles. I hope you guys can see. But I'm going to do my best. And next step, sorry. I don't think this is necessary, I guess, but I really kind of anal. I don't know if this is a big deal or not. But I like to level my bow and then put the rest on and make sure my levels rest, or my rest is level, and then I go from there. Is it necessary? Probably not. I hear guys say they just line it up and look the best they can, close as close. I just level it out. So I got this leveling device from Cody Marchery, and those guys have great videos on how to do this. I've watched many of theirs. I've watched a bunch of YouTube videos, so this isn't the first time. This is just the first time I'm setting up a bow on camera, and this is how I do it. Maybe it's setting up bows for idiots or something like that. So I level out my bow. I got one of these BAP vices. It just goes into my Easy Green Last Chance Archery press. This is what I can use right now until maybe one day my shot gets a little bit bigger. But I'm in my doghouse, not my doghouse, but this is where my dogs sleep at night, and then my hunting stuff. So wow, actually I just got really lucky. So I'm going to take this. Okay, now that I have the bow leveled, I'm going to install the rest. So this rest goes right here in the burger holes. I'm going to try to get it up and close as possible to start off with. Grab this washer, put that in there, and then the bolts. And I don't Loctite this. I guess you could. So I'm just looking, got my bow pretty level, now very level, and I'm just going to mount. I got my rest in there, you know, hand tight, hand tight, not cranked down so I can move it. I wanted to get level with the riser as best I can. You can do it by eye, do it with a level. And then I don't really cork down on this when I'm finalized either, because that's a steel bolt into aluminum riser. And the only thing I wish Hamskea would do on this mounting bolt on this L bracket right here is make it stainless steel. I hunt in very moist areas, maybe the jungle of the Northwest, and that seems to get rust like after every end of my season. So, and I have to pull it out, scrub the rust off of there, and then like usually re-spray paint it. So I don't know if they give you an option like on their website to buy a stainless steel bolt for after. I just wish it came with it. It'd make it a lot nicer for me anyways. But anyway, so now I'm level here. You know, I'm up as close as I can to the riser. You know, I've heard if you bring your rest as close as you can to the riser and you bring your sight in, you know, that helps with torque tuning. That's the most, you know, way you've done it. I've never really tested that, and maybe later on I'll make a video, you know, moving my rest out, my sight out, you know, slowly bringing it in, slowly bringing it out. That's one thing I like about these universal brackets on the side. On a direct mount that I know of, you can't really bring your rest out further back and further back in. It's just bolted right on the back side of the riser. So if you're a huge torque tuner, then maybe the universal method's the way to go. So I got this thing leveled to the riser. Looks good all the way forward. I'm gonna, like I said, I'm not gonna reef on it too hard, but I'm gonna get her tightened down. Okay, now that it's tightened down, I'm gonna get my arrow on here, and we're gonna go over center shot. Okay, so now the next step is I got the rest on. Read your manufacturer guidelines on this Prime Revex 34. They call for 7/8 center shot from the inside of the riser and from the shelf. Most manufacturers that I know usually go 13/16, but you know, I guess an eighth means a little bit of a difference for Prime. So I'm gonna start there and go with what they suggest for center shot. So I'm going to measure here, and as you can see, I am less than 3/4, which would be 11/16 between, you know, 5/8, I guess. But when you go center shot on the shelf here, I'm exactly 7/8. So what I'm going to do is, earlier I explained how those have those extra dots on the mount. I'm going to take the rest back off. I'm going to slide that this way, because the rest right now, it's everything centered from elevation to windage. And I'm going to leave that there for later when I broadhead tune and paper tune, so I have the most adjustment each way. Okay, now that I've adjusted the L bracket to where the rest is coming out towards me, or towards this side of the bow, I'm going to remeasure and see if I'm 7/8 off the riser. And I still haven't adjusted any clicks yet off my elevation or my windage over here. So this is just trying to get as close as I can, so where I have the most room for up and down and left to right later on when I want to adjust. So I think if you look, dang it, I'm going to call that pretty dang good. All right, on 7/8, which is 14/16. And see if it, I don't think anything should have changed up and down, and no, it hasn't. On the riser, I am still, that's kind of a bad view, but I'm still pretty dang close on 7/8. I'm going to call that good. You know, I might have to do a little bit more fine tuning when we come to paper tune. So this Prime that I know of is the only one that puts this little knock button on here, and I was like, man, what the heck is this thing for? I think it's so you can set your arrow. I put my knock above it at first, and the arrow was, doing a nose wheelie way up. So I'm like, oh, maybe it's underneath. I think that's to set to show you where up and down where 7/8 is off that riser. So, I'm gonna have next step is I'm gonna build a D loop for this, and that's gonna have to come off. I'll get there and show you how I mark it with a Sharpie and do everything, but yeah, it's pretty cool that they put that on there to show you 7/8 off the shelf. So the next step is I'm 7/8 off the shelf, 7/8 of an inch off the riser. Okay, that's what manufacturer asked for center shot. That's what I'm gonna give them. So I got my knock. I talked about this brass thing. Prime puts that on there. Now I'm pretty sure it's to get your 7/8 off the shelf. Super cool. So what I'm gonna do is take the silver Sharpie, and the silver Sharpie is your friend. Like, we're gonna go through where I mark, put all my marks, and everything's silver Sharpie because everything's dark and it shows. Like, maybe if my bow was made out of white or a lighter color, I could use black or my strings, but everything's dark, black, and silver Sharpie is there. So what I'm doing is I'm making a mark right underneath my knock point right here, and that's where I'm going to tie my soft knot, nail knot, or whatever the hell it's called, but I'm going to put that there, and what that's going to do is I'm going to put one on the bottom, and I personally put one on the top too, and that's going to make your knock not be pinched. And what I mean by pinched is when you come back to full draw, that your knock is going, it can be like if it's too tight on the string or if it's at a really pitch of an angle, when you're at full draw and your knock is it's there, and how your string angle comes depending on your draw length and the factors of how far the axle is and everything, it makes a pinch. And if it's too tight of an angle or your knock is just being pinched by the string angle, this prevents that. So it gives you a little bit of a room so then that the knot can travel without getting hung up and losing speed or giving you some weird tears or really bad broadhead flight, especially on fixed blades. Next is tying in, and there's multiple materials that you can use to tie in the nocking point. I'm going to use BCY 3D. They make BCY Halo string that I've used before. It's a little bit smaller, and then BCY knock point. Well, why don't you use the knock point? Well, it's a little bit bigger, and I kind of like the happy medium of the two. I like to use this to tie my Peeps, and I like using BCY 3D to tie my knocks. I'm sure I could be doing it wrong. I don't know. This just seems to work out the best for me. Lots of different string options you can use. I pull out, I don't know, 18 inches of this stuff. I definitely don't use it all, and make a cut, and then I'll pull out another 18 inches and we'll do the top. So now that I'm going to cut this 18 inches, just make a nice fine cut. Bam. Oops. And I've done this a couple different ways of putting wax on this to make the tighter, and it seems to help a little bit, but also seems to likes to come loose. So I don't do it really that often anymore. Sometimes, but this case I'm not. And how I'm gonna start this is I'm gonna sorry, I had to make sure you guys could see. I'm gonna come under half and half, so make sure this is pretty even, and then I'm just gonna cross it once, come underneath from left to right, and then I go from right to left, so on the other one. Bam. I only do this on the first and last one. Bring this up close as my knock as I can. And I just cinch that down nice and tight. Then it's just one on the bottom, one wrap through, coming back up, cinching tight. That's two. come back to the top, cinch it tight, 3, come back to the bottom, 4, get them right next to each other, 4, come back to the top, cinch it again, 5, come back to the bottom, cinch it again, 6, and then I'm just pulling that into the knock. Just pulling tight, pulling in. We're going to go one more up on top, 7. Pulling that, tighten in. And then I'm going to end with a double. So, like I said, go over once from left to right, and then the other one left to right. And then I'm just pulling, just pinching that sucker down. And you can take a pair of pliers, reach these, twist it up, pull, and then go on this side, twist it up, and pull. Okay? Leave the tails for now. I'll probably do the top, and then the same exact way. I'm not going to do 8, though. I like to put on the top, once I get rid of this brass knocking point, I guess is what that's called. I'll probably do half, or definitely 4 to 6, and some guys don't even run a top knocking point. They're worried about the bottom. I like to do both. And why I do less is I think you get more knock pinch off the bottom side of things. The shelf is a little bit bigger there. So I'm going to get rid of the brass knocking point. Get my line in there for my Sharpie. And I am going to give it a little room between my knock and my top knock. Paper thickness, maybe. Just a touch of room. Just so that knock, I don't want it to be moving up and down, but I don't want it to just pinch it in there with my knocking points either, because then it kind of defeats the purpose of tying in the knots. Okay, so I got that brass knocking point off. I'm just gonna make my Sharpie mark again. And like I said, just a little bit of room for that knock to, just not get pinched. Because I have this knock here, the Sharpie mark is if I wanted to take this knock off, but sometimes I take it off, sometimes I not. On this part, I just want to see and make sure that I'm not pinching that knock with my knocking point knot. So I'm going to start this again from the top. Loop underneath the string. I'm going to give it 1, 2. I'm going to pull down tight. Just give me a little bit of room. So I don't know if you can see how much gap is there. Let's see if I can measure. I got about the gap of this, I don't know, parchment paper maybe that much between this and the knock. Like I said, very, very small amount. And from there, grab a razor blade, preferably sharp-ish, not enough. And I like to leave, I don't know, maybe 1/2 inch, maybe 1/4 inch. You're just going to burn this off. So just make a nice, easy cut there. There. On this side. Okay. What you're going to do is be very careful. Flame up always, not towards the string, but always flaming up. And you're going to burn these bad boys off. Usually lick my finger and then, put it out. So I'm actually going to take this knock off just to give me a little bit more room. that bad boy out. Just kind of smush it down, make it a mushroom. That's just going to help it from not coming undone. One more mushroom. Flame up, flame up, flame up. There. Perfect. So I got 8 wraps on the bottom, 6 wraps on the top. All right, next step, now that I got my knocking points tied in, is the D-loop. And what I got here is some BCY24. I went with black on this one. Come in lots of colors. I know, like, for some reason when you get a different colored, besides like black, like orange, green, it feels like the material's a little bit stiffer, and that's not a bad thing. This is just what I have. I've used green before. I've used blue, red. This time I'm using black, and it doesn't feel stiff. And we'll see if that, later on in the future, if that is a reasoning for that, if this holds up as long. But how I start this is approximately 5 inches long, and I'm going for like a mid-size D-loop this time. I've done long, I've done short, so, and then this, and I might change this. I might go back here, not like how it's anchoring to my face, need a little bit of length or a little bit too long, and I need to shorten it up. There's a lot you can do here. Like let's say your draw length's 27 3/4 of an inch. Well, your bow's only going half-inch increments, so maybe that's where you come with this D-loop. You make that a little bit longer, a little bit shorter, make that anchoring point really good. So what I do is I just take the end of a lighter. You can use a blunt end of a screwdriver or a tabletop, but smush this thing down. Just push it down from the top. We're trying to make it look like a flower, get it all worked in. So it kind of looks, I think we're going to go a little bit more. What I'm going to do here now that I got it, I'm just trying to make a big knot so it can't ever slide out. Flame up, kind of wrap around this, top. Then it's just kind of mushing this back down. And this, some people might not do their burn ends this long, and they might wait till after it's tied in to do it, but I just like to do it ahead of time. It kind of gives me an idea of, I got these little bit of measurements, like 6 inches for a long one, 4.5, 4 inches for a short, 5 inches I'm going to call happy medium today. And I like to just pre-cut it, get these put in there, and then, my knock's essentially the length that I'm looking at here. And I like these melted ends to be big because I don't ever want it to be at full draw and this D-loop slide out because of that. So it's something you kind of always got to inspect too, before you start shooting, just for a safety aspect. But I'm going to do the other side now. Same thing. I want this burn-in piece facing me, the shooting side. So if you're right-handed, it's going to be opposite what I'm doing here. I'm a left-handed shooter. I like to put the top one, when I mean top, the one closest to the one on the side of the upper cam towards me. So flip this in here, get both of those in. Pull all the slack out of this one side. And this burnt side is on the upper part of this knot. You see, like, burnt side, then your long tail that's going to go on the other side. So through there. Then because we're through there, we're going to go through facing me. Okay, so this string, the long tail started on this section, so now I'm going to go on this side of the string and do the same knot. So I come through here, out and around, and then back through that trap. So just like that. So before I make this tight, my top cam, when I mean top, is facing me. The bottom one is facing away. The string goes from one side, this side of the string first, brings it back over to the shooter side of the string, and then wraps and makes the knot. Okay, now that you got the D-loop on, they make D-loop pliers. I mean, these are made by Easton. There's a couple different manufacturers. I got OCB, one right here you can use. I like the Easton ones just because you can use this for multiple tools, but this essentially does the same thing. We're going to put this in here, pull tight, and pull our slack out. And that's why I like these big, fat, melted ends. So this can never slide out. Like, not when I'm pulling, coming to full draw. I mean, that's a good way to punch yourself in the face. So just get yourself stuck in here a little bit. And then you don't want to just reef on this because you don't want to separate the center serving here. But get a good stretch so it doesn't keep stretching, So I just pull something like that. And that's a little bit longer, I guess, than medium, what I was intending, but that's fine. I mean, if anything, if I don't like it, like I said, I'll come back and I'll either shorten it or I won't. So that's how we do the D-loop. And then I'm going to take that arrow again. Just make sure that I didn't pinch any of my stuff. Bam. And that's it. He's loose, just a touch. And all that's going to do is, you can see how that just moved that whole bubble. I'm going to go right about there. Top. And I'm just going back and forth on these until they're snug. Just a touch. Okay. First axis is done. So then I can come off this. I still make sure my bow's leveled. And now, from here, I'm going to make sure that we're still level here. And then the second axis is adjusted off of this ring right here. And I want the bubble inside of the sight to be level with the level here. If that makes any sense. So, see that I'm hanging to the left just a little bit. So what you do, this is an older black gold sight. This is the first sight that I ever bought. Kind of took me by surprise. I was like, man, the new ones have a screw up here, right here, and right here, and you would just loosen those and then spin this housing, and the bubble is connected to that. Way better design than this older one. I just kind of scratched my head here for a minute, but underneath this older black gold sight, there is these two screws that you have to, oh, can you see those? Those two screws right there that you actually have to loosen and tighten. And I kind of put my finger on the bubble a little bit, and then retighten them down, but be careful, a little bit on each bolt so you're centered. So now, sorry I didn't get that on video, I was kind of messing around with it, but loosen those both and your level will start moving back and forth. Like I said, I touched my finger a little bit on it to hold it in place. Tighten those back up and then back and forth until they were taut again. So then, now that I have that, I just want to double check that my level on my string is still level, which it is. You can see that. Level. And then same with the level in the sight. So now my second axis is adjusted. The next thing is, I said that these bows can go, you can get third axis, second axis, first axis adjusted, second axis is adjusted. There is a third axis adjustment on here. Usually everybody holds a bow differently, so usually I don't do that until after I get everything paper tuned. I'll use that Hamskea tool and we'll get into that. Get me in a rough spot, then I go out and shoot it in. When I mean shoot it in, I go shoot a target down on a hill, at an angle, steep angle, and then go up to it. And then from there, put my target up on top and then shoot up at a steep angle and make sure that I'm in the bullseye. I usually do it at a distance like 40 to 60 yards, whatever you feel comfortable with. Okay, next step is putting in the peep. I got my bow and my last chance archery press. I've got tension off of the strings, maybe a little bit more. And what I'm doing here is I don't want too much where it's sloppy in this D-loop. I kind of want this D-loop to orientate up still. And every bow comes with like this little piece of string that's splitting the serving. And I think that's like a rough guesstimate of where they think the peep's going to go, but definitely separates it evenly. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to not pull this out, but I'm going to separate the string, and then I'm going to put my peep in. I try to leave that little string in there as much as possible. Get what I can separated. And the nice thing is the string's two different colors, so I got silver and black. And half is, one side needs to go silver, one side needs to go black. Really, that's usually 50-50. So I get that separated, kind of just slide my finger in there just to hold that. And then I orientate my peep in here, getting the string on the grooves, not all, and then I just set that in there. Okay, so now my string has rolled, which this means this is backwards. Just making sure all the strings are in the grooves here. Okay, I'm going to come off tension with the press again, making sure that my peep and my D-loop are, somewhat in line with each other. And the next step, you can do it a couple different ways. What I'm going to do is I'm actually going to now put an arrow in this bow. I'm going to draw it, and then I'm going to adjust my peep up and down until it lines up with the housing of the sight. And I'll get to that, showing you here in a second. Okay, now that we got the peep in, before I go to drawing the bow back and checking my peep height, if it's high enough or too low, or if I can see, maybe I have to change the peep out for the housing of my sight, I'm going to set up the limb-driven rest part, so when I can knock an arrow, and if I feel like it, I can shoot or whatever. So what I'm going to do is, limb-driven means that the rest is driven off of the limb. So it'll become tight as when it's relaxed or not being pulled back. And then once you pull the bow back, the launcher on the rest will raise, and that will hold your arrow there. And then once you shoot, the launcher drops because your limbs expand back out. I can give you an idea what that looks like. So I'm going to do it pulling the cord by hand here. Give me a second and record by hand. I'm going to act as my hand as the limb. So right now, this is what it's going to sit like normal when the bow is not being drawn back. But as you draw the bow back, the launcher is going to lift until it gets to right there. That's the end of it. And you can adjust that launcher if you want it to come up more, stay down further. This is the factory setting, and I usually just run it off of that. But so all limb driven is as you come up or as you draw your bow, the launcher rises to hold your arrow, and then as soon as you shoot, bam, drops out of your way. So that's a limb driven, and then there's also cable driven rest, but this one's limb driven. Okay, so the first step is I'm gonna install a limb pad, and that's what I'm gonna tie the cord to. And I'm gonna go approximately about 2 to 4 inches from the tip of the limb down. And what I usually do is I just wait and see what's in line with the launcher. So I don't kick it back this way. But I also, try to leave a tail because I might have to adjust this a little bit. But usually if I just go straight, what looks straight to me, which is about right there, right about there, that will be the center of my launcher pad. Or my limb pad, I guess is what it's called. And I'm going to mount that there. I'm going to clean this up a little bit so the adhesive on the back of this sticks good. And then put this on there, and then we'll go over the knot. But that's sick. And all that's doing is making sure your cord doesn't slide. It's kind of rubbery material. And then the knot, it says in the directions is 2 1/2 inches, but I think I'm going to go with a munter. I think it's a better cinch knot, in my opinion. And so you just take your cord, wrap it in here, and then really you're just choking it around itself. Okay, so what you're going to do is take your cord, bring it around your limb, pull tight, grab it, and then choke itself back into there. Come back around the limb. Then tie 2 1/2 inches, which a 1/2 inch is just coming around this string right here, the main string, going around and then back through the gap that it makes. Once. Twice. I'm going to go 3 times just because I got a little extra tail. And right now I'm not going to cut that or burn that off because I might have to adjust this. Rope or the string is between the grooves on the pad right there. I don't know if you can see that, but I want them in 2 different grooves. I guess, something that I could have done is kind of got a pre-measurement and then slid it down before I tied that off. To my clamp right here, and I'm going to pull this tight. I'm just sliding my clamp a little bit so I can get some tail. I want to pull off of that dampener right here. Just give me a little pull. And this is going to probably stretch a little bit. So after a couple shots, you might see that your launcher is rising a little bit. You just have to come back to this clamp right here and pull your slack out. Just like that. And then I just take my tail here, the extra, like I said, because there's probably going to be a little bit more adjustment or pull a little bit slack. And eventually I might cut a little bit of this off, but I'm just going to add another 2 1/2 inches so the clamp can't slide. One last thing before I check my Peep and pull my bow back is this Hamskea rest comes with a little lock pin, I guess, and it's just so puts pressure against this L bracket so then the rest doesn't move. So it's just a really small, I don't know if you guys can see that pin on the end of this Allen. It just goes right here in the front. And don't go too hard on this, or you might damage the riser of the bow. So I like to just make it a little snug, just like that. Okay, now that I have the rest completely installed, I got my limb driven tied in. I'm now checking to see if my Peep is in a good height at my natural condition. And how I do this is I'm going to draw back with my eyes closed, anchor the way that feels comfortable to me, open my eyes and see if my Peep's even close. There could be a good chance I have to take it all the way out and move it into the next gap. Or maybe it's just a small little movement that I can do by my hand. And I don't have this tied in at all. Some guys are worried about if you shoot it, this thing going to fly out. That hasn't happened to me. I'm not saying it can't happen. I probably will not shoot this, but always pull your bow back with an arrow, because if something goes wrong and you dry fire, there's a good chance that you ruin your limbs and stuff. So always have an arrow in. I'm going to draw this back with my eyes closed. Anchor. Open. Oh yeah. Like it's like a nose button right now. Way too far. Alright. I'm gonna let this down. Alright, I got some movement to do, like a lot of movement, so give me a minute. Just a tug again. Coming off. Press. And you can roll this D-loop just a touch so it orientates. Okay, I'm going to try it again, see where we're at on this. Okay, now that I moved my Peep, I'm going to do the same thing again. And another thing I forgot to say or mention on the last step was when you're coming to draw back, after, I know this is a lot, come draw back, you open your eyes, get in your natural anchoring position, open your eyes. Hopefully your Peep's, close. And then also make sure that your launcher on the rest that you just installed is up, So here we go again. Closing my eyes. Anchored, open. Now I'm just a touch high. Just a touch high. Okay. I'm going to shoot this one. Perfect. Okay. So I'm going to move it. And you just keep doing this process until your Peep's perfectly circular around your eye. And then you want it to match around the housing of your sight. So the circle to circle, right? So I want to be able to make sure that my Peep here is matching. I don't want to be offset like this, down here like this. I want it to be perfectly around that green circle on this side. Okay, so I think I got my Peep pretty close to where I want it, but I don't. What happens a lot is you slide it and your Peep starts twisting, and it should be in the same orientation straight up and down as your D-loop. And right now, if you can tell, it's kicked to the side. So what you can do is put it back in the vise, crank on it, and there's a couple things that I've done. You can come off of the bowstring and put one twist to the direction it needs to go. For me, you know, is clockwise. Or you can pop the whole Peep out and then try to pretty much put it in 180 degrees than it was. But right now, where my D-loop's at, I'm just a little bit off. So I'm going to try to just give it one turn on the upper part of this string to see if it fixes it. So get some slack, come off this here. I just need to go. Yeah, what I'm doing here is it came off of here. It was on this hooked here, popped it off, gave it you know, a little bit of a turn clockwise, not a whole rotation, but a half rotation, and then I just got to feed it back through the cam, and then there's this loop, and I know you can't see this knob, but there's a knob on my side, and I just got to re-hook it in there, and then put the string back, make sure it rolls back over the cam. Just like that. And then I'm just going to give this a tug again. Okay, now that I got my knock where I want it, I'm not going to finalize this tie, and I'll do another video once I know exactly this is where I want it. Because the string is going to, because of the factory string, it's going to spin, it's going to stretch. So I'm just going to, it's called a soft tie for me. It could have another name, but really I'm just taking a piece of my string here. And I'm using the BCY knock point thread on this. And I just need about 12 inches of this, and then I'm just going to do a soft tie, and that's going to give me the availability to move this a little bit if I need to. The knock will not fall out, and then after that it's easier to cut off. So when I make my permanent knot, and you know, I'm going to want to get about 100, 200 shots through this before I finalize my knot. So like I said, this bow's new to me, so it's going to take me a little while before I do a finalized knot video, but it will come sooner than later. Okay, so I got my Peep where I want it. I want to make sure it's squared to my D-loop. I'm just going to do a soft tie in here, and what that means is it's just going to be a temporary tie where the Peep can't move on its own, but if with enough force I can move it in case I just have to make last minute adjustments. I do this till I get about 100 arrows, 200 arrows through this, and then I'll cut this off. So I'm going to use some BCY knock point tie. It's got like some grip to it. It's a little bit bigger, and it just makes it easier for me to cut this off later on and do my final Peep tie. So I'm going to start this by coming from the bottom, getting in the grooves of the Peep, and I'm just going to do 1/2 hitch, pulling down, pulling tight, another one on the bottom, same thing, pulling tight, top, tight, and then on this last bottom one I'm going to go wrap once, wrap twice, pulling tight just to give it a little bit more knot, and then the last one I'm going to tie a square knot, and it's probably a lot easier to Google how to tie a square knot than maybe how I'm going to explain it, but I was taught take your right hand over your left hand, so right string over left string, bring it through, pull down, and then left hand over right hand, pulling down.
That's just going to give me a nice knot to be able to cut off later. Like I said, I can still move this if I need to. And another great idea, what I should do is, you know, once I get this finalized, I'm going to put a Sharpie mark on both sides of this string so I know exactly where to put my next tie at, or start my next tie, so that in case in the operation of me tying the next peep I move, I can use that as a reference and be like, oh shoot. And then now that I have this tied, I just do the same thing. I cut my ends, if I could cut my ends, you know, just enough to give me just a little bit. And this end, you know, I'm only leaving maybe a ½ inch. I mean, that might even be too much. Leave those up, grab the lighter, burn it. Put it out with a wet finger, a little bit more on this one. That's it. That's my temporary knock tie until I do my final tie. Okay, now that everything's ready, the last step is shooting through paper. I mean, not the last step, but the last step to make sure that everything's squared, and then you can go out to the range, sighting your 20 to 60, sight tape, or, you know, start shooting precisely. So all I'm doing is I'm going to shoot my bow through some paper, look at my tear, and then we'll go over, if I have a bad tear, how to adjust it. Okay, what I have here is this hole right here is my tip, and this is my end of my arrow, or fletching side, and you can tell because I have some tears here, here, and here. And what that tells me, if you close this up, is that I have tail right, or tip left, point left. And so what I need to do is make sure I'm not torquing my bow, which means torquing is taking your hand and twisting the bow. You know, I want a nice steady aim, and I want it to be consistent on every time. So I'm going to shoot just one more time to double check, and then if that's what I get again, that's telling me that that I need to either, I'm probably going to have to shim my lint or shim my cams, but if I shim my cams or double check how far out my right, or my center of my arrow is from my riser, it's supposed to be 7/8 of an inch. We'll get those measurements before I do any shimming, and we'll go from there. And as you can see here, this is my second shot. It's the same exact. I got tail right. Knock right, I guess, point left. However you see it. So I'm going to do some double checking on measurements, make sure my center of my arrow to riser is 7/8, and if it is, then we're going to have to go to shimming some limbs. That wraps on the bottom of the bow, comes through. What I'm seeing here, and I don't know if you guys can tell, but I'm actually about a 30-second off, and I don't know what really happened. Maybe I made a mistake thinking that was good, but I'm a little bit off. I need to be, so making this adjustment might bring this, being this far out, you know, it's only going to be a couple clicks, but that might bring my tail right into point. So I'm going to adjust this, and what I did here is I loosened this bolt, and then it's a micro adjust off of this knob right here. So I need to go into the bow, it should be left. Actually, it's right. Okay, let's check that again. Here I go. So, you know, I shot paper tunes, and I was getting a tail to the right, and when I'm like, oh, I got to shim this dang thing, and what had ended up happening is I forgot to check timing, and timing should be checked before you go to paper tune. So what I'm going to do for timing, I have a little scale, and this is just going to tell me how far or how much poundage, max poundage is, and then holding poundage on the double here. I don't even know if you can see those numbers. I don't always use this. I'm just going to reference this for the first time. But I'm going to go over timing. So you need a drawboard, or I have the Last Chance Archery attachment that goes to my press. And all I'm going to do is crank this up. And this is all, it's technically drawing the bow. Okay. So what I'm doing is, these right here are called cable stops. I got one on the bottom, one on the top. Here's the bottom one, top. And I want to make sure that those hit my cables at the exact same time. So if you can see that, I'm touching right there. Right there I'm touching. So let's check the top. And I'm off. And let's see what my poundage was. I bet you I'm like under 70. These limbs are at 70. So yeah, I'm at 68.3 with the holding weight of 13.4 pounds. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to get my timing back in by making this cam faster. Okay, I got my bow back in the press, as you can see, and I'm going to make my top cam here a little bit faster to get my 70 pounds and to get the cams to time the same. So I'm going to take this cable that goes to the cam itself, inside cam. I know there's another cable here. If you can see, this is for the other cable for timing. So I'm going to take this cable that is on the inside of this cam. That's going to be how fast this cam is spinning. Follow it out. Making sure you guys can see this. Follow it out to right here. Right here. And I'm going to take it off. Get a little bit more tension on the pen. Pop it off the knob. I don't know if you guys can see that knob or not. It's like right in there. If you can see that where my thumb's at, wiggling, that's the knob I need to take it off. So I'm gonna pop it off, bring it out here, and then just I'm gonna go one full turn. So now it would be half, but I'm gonna go one full turn and put it back on. And now that I have it back on, I'm going to double check and make sure my string and both my cables are still in the right spot in the grooves. They're not off the groove. So when I come back to tension, that none of these things are going to come off on both sides. So same thing over here, checking my strings, making sure that's in the right spot. This is still hooked. And then pulling tension on your D-loop and coming off tension. Okay, let's check timing now. Okay, now that I made my adjustment on my cable for my upper cam, let's see if that fixed our issue. So I'm going to clear this off. Touching there, and I still grab this. I still have a minute gap. So small, but small enough for that we can get probably a half a twist in. And it's probably going to, I don't know why you can't see that on the camera, but yeah, no. Anyways, I can fit this piece of paper in there, no problem. Bam. So, put that piece of paper in there. I got a little bit more than that. So, I'm going to try a half twist, see if that fixes my issue. And again, I'm just doing the same thing, but this time, I'm going to do a half. So, pop it out of here, take this off. That's how it's sitting. Half a turn. So you see how it sort of has this pre-end bent? That's going to have to come out. So just kind of form it. Pop it on that knob. I know you can't see because my hand's in the way. Bring it around. And bam, I'm on. So I popped it on this knob here. Brought it back around. Okay, checking my cables and my strings again to make sure everything's in the right spots and they're not going to pop off like that one. I just checked this side, made sure the same thing, that this string is still in the groove, that this top bus cable is still in the groove, and that this bottom bus cable in here is still in the groove. Just make sure it's in the groove before you come off the tension, or some bad things can happen. Stretch your strings wrong, separate serving, things like that. Might have to buy a new set of strings. Pull tension on my D-loop. Bam. Now that I got the timing right, I'm going to reshoot my bow through paper to see if that fixed anything. Before I go to shimming my cams, that was my mistake to not check that even before I started paper tuning. I just kind of assumed and got ahead of myself. So what I'm going to do is shoot this one more time and see what we got. Alright, this is what we got. And I'm calling that a perfect bullet hole. 1 hole, 3 fletches. See that? 1 hole, 3 fletches is what we're looking for. Bam.